And I think what really stood out to me, Amy, was what you said about something about that process of easing up to the tiger was opening your heart more fully. And I'd heard this story a bunch of times and I'd never noticed that before. Opening your heart more fully to a greater power, which one of the things I love about mythology and even working with dreams is taking the assumption that every element of the story is part of yourself. And so we can think of the tiger as being something that's like outside and scary, but if we think of it as it's a part of ourself that's scaring us, through this process of feeding it and getting closer, you're opening your heart up more to your own power. And I was, wow, yeah, thank you. All right, who wants to go next for sharing how the story landed for them?
I think I'm struck with how our society and our culture has made everything very easy for us. So then when we go and we want to do some sort of cleansing of our soul, uh, finding something that we've lost or something, we think it's this huge challenge, right? There was a time in our civilization that, you know, we had to go kill the deer with our own hand. We had to go get the buffalo with our own tools. We had to go cut it and see the guts and everything, and it was brutal. And I think this brutality is sort of kind of a made up story. It's really the life. It's not something that's above us. It is us, right? It's that experience of being one with the animal that you just killed and saying thank you, and having this relationship and anytime you do something inside of what we call brutal now, it has sort of this ring of truth that runs through every other issue that we're facing in life. So I can go out and climb a mountain and come back with the answer to why my business doesn't work, because the brutality of walking up a mountain with each rock and knowing that these rocks will kill me and the gravity always wins, shows me something about how, hey, get on the phone, call somebody and ask them for the money. Okay, this is how it works, the gravity of relationship. Um, so that's what I'm experiencing. I would say also that how I learned this was with a bunch of guys out in the woods around a fire, and it got tribal. And inside of that was this whole other awakening of who I was, and it wasn't who I was. It was what I always was, and that person doesn't exist in society well, because society has talked itself out of this awareness of who we all are, and then we're all coming here to find it again, plug back into it again. But it is an exact revolt of everything around us a lot of times, but they all want it, they just don't know it. Yeah.
Oh, and David, that was also perfect timing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So many good kernels. I love it. Ooh, I'm really curious to hear what all came up for you as you were hearing that.
First of all, I like the use of your hands. It like really helps tell the story, and I resonate with that very much. Something that stood out to me toward the end when you said it's something that we all want, we just don't know we want it. Like this connection with like our tribal self, our wild self that is rough and brutal sometimes. Um, it makes me think of the story and how we are all looking for a cure. And I think it's for that longing. It's the longing of like reconnecting with that part of ourselves, because it feels most connected to like the earth and to humanity and plants and animals. And um, my mind just went off track and I don't know where I am, but that stood out to me. Yes, I will stop there.
Beautiful.
So what stood out to me was how, and I guess I was kind of taking what you said and relating it to what I said, and the things about, well, I've been through a fair amount, probably no more, no hugely more or less than others in our culture here in the West, of suffering, but the suffering was, if I look at it, it has a lot to do with the culture and the constriction and the limitations and the conditioning, the stuff that I was constrained by. And I'm not surprised that some of the things I'm thinking about doing, they're kind of, I mean, some of the things in the studies part, are more shamanistic. They're much more nature related. But not only that, like taking off in some kind of little, I don't know, haven't figured it out, and going, living more on the land and blah, blah, blah. But because that kind of brutality I'm good with. Like I want to have that suffering. Anyway,
Right.
what you're saying, and that's, yeah.
Totally. Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Stephen, you want to chime in? No requirements. One of the things that really came out for me is that I've also struggled with is this idea that like the way our society is built is holding me back from being a real human being, from being able to do what's in my DNA. It's like, it's not that I don't want to struggle, it's that I'm struggling in the wrong way. Like there's something in my DNA that wants to face down the predator and win, that wants to be, in the dirt, in the trees, scratching out a living. And one of the things that I realized is that I don't think that that's unique to our modern times. I think that's something that's part of being a human being, period, is living this constant tension between the wildness in me and the tameness that's needed in order to live harmoniously with other people. With that part of me that really longs to belong and to be really close, and the part of me that really wants to be on my own solitary wild journey. And so I think it has less to do with like tearing apart our current social structures and more to do with how can we as individuals and groups start to reintegrate opportunities to become wild, to go out and have that journey up the mountain and then pull that thread back into our lives and support each other in doing that. So.
You're making me think.
Okay, good.
My goal is always to take the people down in the valley and say, come with me to the mountains, right? Mm-hmm. I'll give you life. And you're making me think, bring the mountain down in the valley or something. I don't know. It's
sit with that. There's something in there for you. Okay. That it might take some time to marinate. I love it. Thank you. All right, Amy or Stephen, you want to go? Or did...
I want to give Stephen feedback about what he said, because his lack of concentration makes me giggle and puts me into this beautiful... So wander around however you want, man. Mm-hmm. It's totally beautiful.
Thank you. I could see that really landed for Stephen in a beautiful way. Thanks for acknowledging that. Okay. Yeah, so I think it's, oh no, wait, it's Kristen and Stephen that haven't shared yet. Okay, gotcha. Who wants to go next? And no, I mean, if you just want to, Stephen, I totally appreciate what you said. Some of us just need more time to let these things marinate. We're not quite ready to just put it out in the world yet. So there's no pressure to share it all. And I'm going to send you all a link to that story if you want to listen to it again and spend more time with it.
Like what you said about when you pointed out that after she had faced the tiger, she was very willing to share her experience in the journey up to the tiger and facing the tiger. And I notice sometimes when I'm like talking to someone about a problem that I'm facing internally or externally, I get into this cycle where it seems like it's not going anywhere. I'm just kind of like stuck swirling in the issue. And I wonder if like facing the fear that's at like the root of the issue, and like walking away from it alive it like enlivens the story. And I've been watching a lot of movies lately because of the circumstances, and this is true in music too, is that we love a good like resolution. And it seems like facing the fear and like walking away from it, like reaching the peak and then walking back down, it's just so satisfying. So that probably like charges us to like, I want to share this experience that I had because it like went around in a full circle and something happened and I learned something. So I really like that.
Yeah, I too really liked, I really resonated, got a lot out of the fact that yes, all fears that we have faced, right, are these building blocks. They are like one more stone. They do enliven our lives, and then we gather some strength and move to the next step, maybe where we're comfortable to go through the next fear. And I do notice personally that when I have gone through the journey of facing a suffering in myself, in the journey, I'm not as, I mean, I might be talking to some people, it's very limited, but as I come out of facing it, I'm enlivened and I'm sharing about it. I think that's what you were saying. Afterwards, I pushed myself maybe in it, but it's different once I've come out. Yeah. She was stronger, like we're stronger. Yeah.
What came to me in your share, Stephen, was like the entire hero's journey archetype, right? Of going away from home, shedding the identity, wandering in the wilderness, and then coming back. And your description of that integration phase is we've come back with this treasure from this journey that we've taken, with this desire to embody it more deeply and to share it with tribe. And I think what I heard you saying was this beautiful description of what story is for both individuals and communities. It's like when we have a deep experience, when we write about it, it's almost like we're honoring it by taking action because of what we've received. It takes it deeper into our bones and we remember it. And then when we tell others about it, like that then gives it more life. Like we are longing for that resolution because we want to really not just constantly be going through challenges, but give them an opportunity to kind of sit and marinate and become something inside of us that becomes a part of us. And I just love that this part of the story stood out for you because you shared in the introductions about having gone through this journey with anxiety and wanting to know how to tell the story. And so that seems to be really alive in your psyche to do that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Kristen?
Well, this story from the beginning resonated with me because I am going through the process of grieving and letting go of the relationship that I was in previously. And I'm seeing like the start of connections between what I initially talked about in bringing to this meeting, my connection with my body and that relationship. So in a lot of ways, I see like the process of relationships ending and new ones beginning, and how that's just this like constant flow that's happening. And I think it's like a habit or a tendency for me to just like shield myself from the grief and the mourning and letting things go and the pain that's there, especially when I believed like either a person or an image of myself to be like the love of my life, like the one thing to sustain me. And um, I keep seeing the image of the female character walking up the mountain and bringing her little offerings of like nourishment for the tiger, and like trusting her instinct to like, okay, this is how far I can go today. I'll come back tomorrow, and go a little further. And that's been a realization for me, is that I'm not going to fix this all in one sitting. It takes time. It takes moments. And what stood out to me too is that he said courage within matched with the desire to heal, and that feels like a driving force. And then this is kind of a side note, with the word integrity, is I've been looking at my skeletal system, my bones, as like my own foundation, and trying to respect the integrity of how like my joints come together and moving with them. So I think when an ending is happening, it's helpful for me to like reconnect with that like baseline, deepest strength and support that's like naturally there. So that concludes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I really like how you described her bringing the bowl of food, you know, the nourishment for the tiger, which obviously he really loved, that he ate and became quite friendly to her, and how that really described the gentle but courageous spirit that she did have and that you have. Right. And I appreciate you sharing your more personal circumstances. I could, yeah, thank you.
I think there's such a goodness when Kristen talks that I forget what she's talking about. It's just, okay, all right, this is wonderful. All right. So, I mean, I have to be honest with you. I mean, it's just keep talking. You know, there's just something. Nancy was doing this yesterday. Just she was describing how she was lost and confused about what she was doing in life, but her explaining it to me was like giving me life every time she was talking about it. And I think that there is just something. Yeah, I mean, if you could just become aware of the perfection that you already just have, like, I guess the other thing I want to say is doing it day by day. I've learned that there's sort of in biblical terms, it's our daily bread, right? Like God doesn't give us more than we can bear, right? So it's there's some kind of reward that I get for doing just the process every day, and that's it. Like I just take my whatever it was, this small little reward. I mean, I may be one to climb the mountain, but hey, you know what? I made it to this plateau, and whew, yes, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's what there is for me.
Beautiful.
It's our daily rice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what landed for me about your share, Kristen, was a lot of was similar to what Stephen said, just in terms of realizing that your bones are this base deep structure that holds you through times of change. You know, and I just have this picture of times that I've gone through in my life where it literally feels like the flesh is falling off of my body. And the thing that gets me through it is thinking, what is going to be left when everything that I think is me is gone? You know, and just this idea that this image of the mountain and the stones as things that we receive that sometimes we put in the river and step on, and sometimes we don't. And then these bones, that just says something that feels really solid about this story. And I also just I think my favorite part was just that moment of David just sharing with you about just the goodness that radiates when you're talking. That's even more nourishing than the words. And I so relate to that. And I hope that you experience that for yourself when you talk.
I just want to say thank you, because this is kind of introducing a different kind of story for me. The previous story is that my talking is scattered and unorganized, and I'm not getting to the point. So it's just like, that's not true anymore.
Well, I think it's an invitation to think about communication. You know, you're clearly communicating who you are and providing a gift when you talk that goes above and beyond the words. Right. Yeah, that's very clear. Oh, you guys, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we're recording this, because I feel like I want to send it all to you, because there were so many moments that happened where I'm like, wait, I want to hit pause and think about that for like 5 minutes. There were just so many just gems in here. So I really appreciate your willingness to have us do that. And I think just kind of a theme that's coming out for me from all of these shares and the story in general is just what we're willing to do for love, for what we love. You know, in this story, it's a person that she's willing to face all of these difficulties to try to help. But it's, you know, the thing that we want to give to the world, you know, the story that comes out of our suffering, you know, the individual gift, the spark, the creative venture that we want to have. You know, I think the story really is a roadmap for what it takes to really nurture that. And one day at a time, you know, just bring it to life. So I am going to be...
Somebody just has the intention to hold the space, and whatever it takes for you to create the space, I just really appreciate you standing against your own imaginations, cultures, norms, whatever, just to do what you're brilliant at doing. So I just thank you for doing that. One other thing I want to say is every once in a while when I'm out in the mountains, I'll stop and I'll look at the avalanche lilies and I'll go, wow, it's so beautiful. And they don't have anything to say to me. They're not talking. They don't collect their thoughts. But I can sit there for an hour and just be immersed in the beauty of those. So,
Well, but I would say they are talking to you.
hey, great.
They're telling you all about beauty.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, Christine, stop making it so damn complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. I had heard this story before, but it'd been many years. The tiger's whisker, and I'd forgotten how she got it. But what I love is, yeah, how deeply it went inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then with your sharing, then the layers went deeper, and it's just kind of amazing because I mean, so many of the things that I do don't get this deep, or I'm not following it this deep. So anyway, Nancy, you're doing an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. You really, yeah.
Well, and what I love about this process most of all is all I'm doing is creating space in the invitation. And we created this together because this is what human beings are born to do. We're longing to gather around the hearth and take these stories and and have them take us to those deep, deep places that are wanting to communicate to us. And it's hard to go as deep as we can when we're by ourselves. Because as Kristen said earlier, you can kind of get stuck in your own, cycle with it. And so I'm like, we're just being human beings. We make this together. You take human beings and this is the beauty of, as much as the stories that we tell about our lives create so much suffering, this is the flip side and the beauty of what's possible. It's just part of being human, and what matters is how we use it. Yeah.
You have a great facilitation, and you have deep deepening in yourself you're bringing.
Great. It's happening. I love it. Thank you.
Nancy, I like how you have designed this so that there is time for individual sharing and then reflecting. And it makes me think of what you said initially about like wanting to have our own individual journey, but then also longing for inclusion and to be a part of something. And it like totally meets both of those. And like for me, after sharing my experience and then having it reflected back, I felt so heard. And it's like, it's not just my story. I do have a story, but like we're creating a collective story. So it's just so beautiful, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I love how you said that, right? Because we went on individual journeys together, and then we came back and we got seen by the tribe, and that deepened it in us.
Yeah.
So we're able to hold the solitude and the connection. And I'm so glad I'm seeing all these nods about the structure, because it's difficult for me introducing new people into it, because I feel like I don't want people to feel stifled, but the structure is really there so we all can kind of relax into the experience and know that we're all going to be heard. I appreciated the balance and the flow of all of you. I feel like we have a lot of different personalities and a lot of different just temperaments and life experiences that are happening, and it just made it so incredibly rich. Just introducing so many new elements into this collective stew that we had. And I feel like I'm really glad this isn't in the evening, because I wouldn't be able to sleep. I'm like so buzzing right now. So I really appreciate.
Wait till you're not recording it. See what happens.
Right. I'm gonna totally just like flop on the floor and just Yeah, but I really appreciate all of you bringing your warm and open hearts and your rich imaginations and just all of this good, gritty, brutal material from your lives that is really what's taking us deep and enabling us to support each other. So, pull your embers out of the hearth and wander back into the dark wood, and we'll be here for you when you need us. Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Take good
Thank you.
care. Thank you again.